Hello, everyone. So happy 2021. I hope all of you are doing wonderful. So I have been away for far too long, and today I will be reviewing Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdrich, Indigenous author Louise Erdrich. So let's get this book review started. So everyone, Vitsuave, welcome. And I apologize for the glare of my my ring light right now, but it is kind of dark in here and the living room's occupied and all the other bedrooms are occupied. So I apologize if you see like a big huge circle on my face. Welcome, welcome. My name is Kim, and this is my channel, Native Lady Book Warrior. And right now, I am so very honored to be doing this book review. And this is my first Louise Erdrich book review. So Louise Erdrich is a Turtle Mountain Chippewa native, and this is definitely not going to be my last Erdrich review. So Future Home of the Living God is an Indigenous literary fiction, part thriller, part dystopian, and at the beginning of an apocalyptic United States. This book is written in journal format, and the protagonist, Cedar Songmaker, is making a journal for her unborn child. Cedar herself is an adopted child, an adopted person, and she is stressed because in this setting it is very dangerous for pregnant peoples. Humanity, plant life, animal life, and all life really is de-evolving, and I don't want to give too much detail especially when it comes to the dystopian setting, because when you read about all those details, in my opinion, I found it to be very good. In this story, when it comes to humans giving birth, the newborns are coming into the world with ape-like features, or what is described as humanity going backwards, or a de-evolving humanity. 26-year-old Cedar, her journey begins with her traveling back to her Indigenous community on the reservation to meet her biological mom. So Cedar is Ojibwe and has been raised by two liberal white parents. So Cedar is 4 months pregnant, and she wants to ask her birth mom if she has anything to worry about, especially when it comes to the health concern of her giving birth. And so she is making this journey back to her Indigenous community. And shortly after that meeting, society around her begins to fall apart pretty quick. On top of Cedar worrying about the dangers of her giving birth, but she is also very much in danger of this new government that is rising around her, that is hunting pregnant people and kidnapping them by force and researching and imprisoning pregnant people to see why humanity is biologically descending, basically. So Cedar is all the while writing this tale in a journal for her future child in hiding, and she is evading capture by the government. So this book is split into 3 parts, with part 1 and part 2 that has like the most suspense taking place in the book, and the plot really picks up during the second half of the book. Part 1 is also nail-biting when the author begins to explore what is going on, especially when the author is feeding you those dystopian details. And I was eating up all those details. I would have liked more of those dystopian details, but then I started to really rethink what format this book was written in, and its perspective, and also the time span in which this book is written. It starts in August and it doesn't even reach a year, or maybe it does reach a year at the conclusion, but there are also no chapters in this book. Instead, we are given dates just like a regular journal or diary entry. And to me, that format of that journal also kind of fed into the heightened feel of what was going on with Cedar and the events that are taking place in this book. In all honesty, this book scared the crap out of me, and I could see all of these events unfolding, and I could specifically see the loss of autonomy for the people who could give birth or who could possibly give birth. I saw how systemic oppression that is happening now, like currently in this country, especially at the time I read this book. I could very much see those events at the time. I read this book in November of last year, and I could see how very much the fear of what was happening currently at that time in our country easily carrying over and using that fear and that panic as kind of like a bridge for oppression to oppress people further. I could see and feel the panic of the people in this story. And at the very beginning of this looming pre-apocalyptic collapse of society in the United States, I could see the desperation of a humanity in collapse, but more importantly, I could feel the strength and the love of parents and family and community amidst a wonderfully written doom of the world and all those really awesome realistic. The characters, whoa, the characters are, in my opinion, especially Cedar, are very wonderfully written, and you could feel them, you could see them, and they may even remind you of someone or somebody. And Cedar, honestly, Cedar in the beginning wasn't my she wasn't my favorite character, but seeing her develop was so amazing. Cedar may have even felt frustrating to me at times, but then her background is also really complex. She is an Indigenous person, far removed from her community and her Indigenous cultural ties, but that is no fault of her own. Slowly, you see her reconnecting, and more importantly, you see her community and her family trying to help her reconnect and giving her that choice to reconnect. That is also really essential, especially in an oppressive world where choice is being taken away. With Cedar's character, you also take a peek at the racism and tokenization, the stereotyping, and the settler colonial mentality that Indigenous people face, especially how Indigenous women and girls and are put in these very specific categories, and how that racist categorization hurt us and how it dehumanizes us. Erdrich brilliantly writes that into Cedar's experiences during this story, and Erdrich also explores the strength and the resilience of Indigenous community and family really, really well. The only challenges that I had reading this book was the Catholic theology and the Catholic religious references, because Cedar herself is Catholic. I got really lost in those parts, and I began to look up things, and I still wasn't connecting or understanding. But so a lot of that information really just totally flew over my head. But did those things lower the rating of my book? No, they didn't. I just simply had a hard time connecting to those parts in the book and how they played a significant role with Cedar. This book is very plainly a beautiful, tragic, thrilling love letter to Cedar's potential future child. It's a character putting their love into a journal while storytelling events that may one day explain a parent's love, but also their strength in a world that turns crappy really fast in the face of crappy circumstances. And the love and strength and wit of a parent that grounds this story is very awe-inspiring, and it shattered me. It had me rereading passages and pondering and stressing, because I read this book around the time of the presidential election, and this book scared me in ways where I was really thinking and fearful of where we would be as a society if the presidential election had turned out differently. And it was probably not a good idea for me to read this during the election, but I was reading the last 150 pages very early into the next day, and concluding this book around 3 or almost 4 a.m. The last 100 pages of this book kept me up, and parts of this book were nail-biting. The other parts were slow and thoughtful, and the end of this book and how it concluded was so good. And I don't want to spoil it, but for me, it was good, and it was really beautiful. So I gave this book a solid 4 stars. It was good. I am happy I read this. And this, like I was saying before, this is not my last Edrich book. It is pretty much the beginning of me, my journey with Edrich and her wonderful work. So thank you, Louise Erdrich, for this really wonderful piece of work. I am very done with this review. If you read this book, please feel free to check out my discussion as well. But also, let me know what your favorite dystopian book is, and leave that down in the comments. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are safe. So I shall see you again soon. And thank you for watching this book review. So, bye.